And now, weighing in out of the blue corner, Josh the Pug Thompson. 100% agree. And on the other mic, he weighs in from the red corner, Big John McCarthy.
Man, you need to fucking spend some days with Josh Thompson. Learn something, goddammit. No, I'm serious. You know what? I mean, it's so... Josh knows. How many guys do you know?
Wow, that's pretty impressive. How did that taste coming out of your mouth?
Like
vinegar.
I want you to know that makes me feel really good that I know that you have been smart. You set yourself up.
Yeah.
And it's not like you're relying on that. You're still working towards doing other things. Yeah. But this is what guys think it's going to be there forever. It's not, man. And I know so many guys that, how many do you know that are broke?
Yeah.
And have nothing. The Mark Colemans of the world, the fucking Phil Baronis of the world.
Yeah, but look, I can look at those guys and say simply that they never, at that time in this stage of their career, there was not a lot of money in the sport. That's the thing. That's what the difference is. I mean, he was a champ for how many fights? I mean, something like 5 or 6 times. He was wasn't Tyron Woodley like 5 or 6 time defending champion?
Oh yeah.
So I know he fought Stephen Thompson twice. So that's 2.
Fought Stephen Thompson twice.
Darren Till.
He fought Lawler. He won against Lawler. He fought Darren Till.
He won against Lawler.
You know what I mean? So he won the title. I can't think of who else.
Damian Maia, I think, right? Did he fight Damian Maia?
Did he fight Damian Maia? Damian Maia.
It was fucking horrible.
But I'm simply saying, like, that kind of money when you're the champ, it comes in and like you just blow. I don't know. You just blow through it. It's not something that you just got to realize that, and it's not going to be there forever. You said that already. But on top of it, it's you can't try to keep up with everyone else, and people try to live that it's not even so much that lifestyle of like that they're Sylvester Stallone but they want to go to those things. They want to be part of those things. I never had the urge to do it, and I'll give you something that happened right now. Like, I've done 2 movies. I was the lead in 2 movies, okay, and I didn't go look for roles, okay. And that was the thing. Like, I didn't go look for roles. They actually got brought and approached to me. So when the whole thing happened, I was like, I tried to talk myself out of doing it. I was like, nah, because I had to do them in Asia. So I spent almost 10 weeks in China the first time doing the first movie, and I spent another 8 weeks in China doing the second movie. Like, that's a long time to be away from basically everyone you know, and then the time change, the difference, everything like that. And it wasn't great money. I did it for the experience, but I didn't go look for those roles. They actually found me. And just today I got hit up saying, hey, would you like to have maybe like a reoccurring part in a TV series? And it's a pretty popular TV series. I'm going to let it remain nameless until if anything happens with it. But I don't rely on these type of things. Like, if it comes up, it's like, sure, it sounds wonderful. But you know how many times it doesn't come to fruition? You know how many times you have these conversations? Like, it's crazy to think, like, when you see someone in a role, they've probably been talked about that role about 50 times, but it never came about. And then finally one time it came about and you see them on TV. It's to think that, like, people, I know people, I'll give you an example. Kung Lee. He tried to live that movie star life, as in terms of, like, he got into some movies, had some big roles in some movies. But then after those movies had dried up, he just continued to keep going down to LA and trying to get parts, sometimes auditioning. Then like you get down there, you fly from the Bay Area to LA, like it's a $200 flight. Normally it's last minute. So up the price, say it's a $300 flight, and you do that, once a week for a month. That's a lot of money out, and you didn't get any of the roles. Then what? It's like you just spend all that money for no reason. And it happens all the time to people. That's why people move to LA to live there. But it's so expensive to live in LA, like it is expensive to live here in the Bay Area. You just can't do it. I never wanted to live that lifestyle. Sure, I would love to have a reoccurring role in a TV series. That would be amazing. But the thing is, I also am like, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Go on with your life. You got to stick with what you do really well and what you love doing. I love doing this. This is what I enjoy, sitting at the bar with you sometimes after a fight for about 2 hours, eating chicken strips and fries and drinking a couple of beers and having a conversation about how the night went. That to me is fun, and sure, all the other things are great, but it's not as important. It really isn't. And to put this all in perspective is just what happened to Kobe Bryant. I mean, it really does put things in perspective, like on on what happened, and it can happen to anyone. And everyone has been talking all day about it, and yesterday, and I was talking just real briefly with some friends today, and I'm like, man, death does not discriminate. Doesn't matter if you're rich, poor, black, white, yellow, green. It does not care, and it will take you at any time it chooses to take you. And it's really sad to see and hear, about the families that were lost there, as well as Kobe and his daughter, and man, it's been just crazy today all over social media, and it's really sad. I mean, I still a little bit of in disbelief. I start seeing it on TV, and I'm like, man, I can't believe he's gone. I can't believe I was never a big Kobe fan. I admired what he did. Obviously, I was more of the Jordan guy. Like I grew up kind of watching Jordan, and then when I got a little bit older, and I was fighting all the time. I didn't really watch a whole lot of other sports except for fighting because I was involved in the fight game. But man, when I did watch him, I was in awe, of him and a bunch of some other players, but him specifically because he mimicked a lot of what Jordan did, and he
improved upon a lot of what Jordan did.
Yes, he did. Very true. It's funny that you said that.
It's true. I was a Laker fan since I was a kid, and so I had my up and downs with the Lakers, and when Jerry West is the one that did the deal that got Kobe. And I think it was Vlade Divac was one of the players that he gave up to get Kobe Bryant as a high school player. And because I think it was the Charlotte Hornets that had drafted him. And he traded for him. And I thought, man, this, I'd watched him, seen him play out of Marion High when he was there and stuff. But, he came in and, he had it rough. He's a high school kid among men, and that's so hard. But man, he just every year he got better, and he did things in a different way, and then he just improved on stuff. And then you heard about how hard he worked, and that was the real thing. How hard he worked stuff. And I met him at the UFC, just shaking hands. Hey, very nice to meet you. I didn't know the guy, but I heard very, very inspiring things from a lot of people. And I used to give talks, and one of the things we talked about is, that 86,400. That's my number. And I talk about that number all the time because there's 86,400 seconds in a day. And once they're gone, you'll never get them back. And yeah, hopefully there's tomorrow, but you never know when that bank account of 86,400 is going to be closed off from you. And, it's so unfortunate. I feel bad for Kobe. God damn, do I feel bad for his wife? Do I feel bad? She lost a husband and she lost a daughter. Yeah. And that little girl, at 13 years of age, had so much life to live, had so many things to accomplish. And the other people around that, I feel so bad for them. Because I was taken off from LAX, just about at the same time that he took off, I guess, from Orange County in the helicopter, and it was foggy. And I don't think anything about it. It's, big planes, and I wasn't worried about anything, but it was kind of foggy out there. And, unfortunately I don't know what happened, and they'll figure it out in the end. But, he got that helicopter because he was missing things. And it was that simple thing of time, that time that he was spending on the freeways. It's the same reason I left LA. I got tired of sitting on the freeway, wasting time. And that's why he ended up starting to travel all the time through helicopters, because, man, it saved time and he could do more with his family. And you look at everything, and, it's a guy, and I talk about people all the time, that there's certain people that they touch people. And it could be, you just meet the person for 10 seconds. It could be that you spend a day with someone. It could be that somebody is someone that becomes part of your life. But that guy touched a lot of lives. He made a lot of things good for a lot of people, and it's a shame that a life that was a good life and a life that helped others was cut short. So I feel really bad for the family members, and I feel bad for the fans, because, man, you never think about it until they're gone. Yeah. And it's like the whole, you and I have talked about the Hall of Fame thing, and the NFL's got the 5-year thing, and so I think the NBA does too. And now they just said they're cutting that, and Kobe's going to be put into the Hall of Fame. And that's all great and well and nice, but he never knew that he was, he knew he was going, but he never received that accolade. And that's too bad. Yeah.
I feel like when someone is a first ballot Hall of Famer, you should just automatically, when they announce their retirement, just induct them in. I see there's no reason to allow it to go any further. everyone knew he was going. I mean, there was no, and he was going to be a first. It would happen as soon as the 5-year mark was up. He would go first. The story that always sticks out in my head, and I can't remember who the player was, but they had walked into the training room and they started just drilling their shots, and they were drilling their shots. And Kobe had walked in probably about 5 minutes after they did, not even that long, he said, and Kobe. They'd been the kid was in there for quite a while, and he was waiting for Kobe to leave until he left because he wanted to show Kobe. He wanted to wait, and so he was waiting for Kobe to leave until he left, and he would leave with them or right after him to show that he was working hard. And after about 4 hours, he realized that Kobe wasn't leaving, and so he left. And Kobe paid no mind to him either. He just kept doing his drills, kept doing his exercise, kept doing his work, kept working on his craft. And it was just one of those things. I'm not going to let you think that you work harder than I do. And it's something so small. And whoever
it was a mental thing.
Yeah, and whoever that player was, though, he ended up talking to him after. He's like, no. He's like, I knew what you were doing. He's like, that's why I stayed as long as I could. I stayed until you left. He's like, and it didn't matter how long you would have stayed, I would have stayed there. And that's that mindset of that mental mentality that you need to have when you're going to be a professional athlete. And every professional athlete needs to understand that. And it's pretty rare that you get it. And I never met him. I didn't shake his hand. I don't know anything about him. I watched him obviously in awe on TV playing basketball, and I never really was a big basketball fan. I loved basketball when I was a kid because of Jordan, but then when Jordan left, I kind of just lost it a little bit. And then I started fighting, and just things overtook my life, and I just didn't pay attention as much. But you always saw in the highlights, because I watched a ton of ESPN, to catch myself up on the sports. And there was never, I don't think, a night I went by he wasn't on there. Every time basketball season was going on, he was on there and just doing spectacular things. And it's sad, and it's not just sad because he's gone, but it's sad because his 13-year-old daughter's gone, who sounds like had a very bright future in potentially in basketball. And I was hearing a story today about how a fan had come up to him and said, "Oh man, you and your wife got to have one more. You guys got to get that boy.
I know that story.
You got to get that boy. You got to get that boy. You need a boy to carry on the legacy." And then his daughter stepped to the front of it. I got this.
You love that, man.
That to me was just
awesome.
It sent chills down my spine. I was listening to it on the radio, and I was like, "This is awesome, man." And honestly, like I said, I don't know him, but it makes you sad. It makes me really sad to think. And like I said, death doesn't discriminate. It doesn't care who you are, what you make, and it doesn't care what color you are, nothing. And I think as humans, we need to remember that and stick together. And and all politics aside, we need to remember that it's about us. Remember that it's to be friendly to each other, be kind to each other, and spread positivity. That's the biggest thing. That's the biggest thing I think we should take away from all of this, and
good message.
Yeah. Okay, we had a really good weekend. We had a good weekend. Felt like we had a good weekend.
Let's start it off with, how was your time on JRE?
Oh, I mean, I tried.
You started a shitstorm. I want you to know that, and I am so fucking proud of you for doing it.
It was awesome.
And that shitstorm is not stopping.
Yeah, I
love it.
I honestly
This is all about that positivity part.
Yes. I didn't all I did was post. I was like one of the first guys, basically. I think I was like one of the first guys, probably, to post that video of Stephen A. Smith hitting mitts.
It's awesome.
And Rogan hit me up. He's like, "Hey, we got to talk about this when you're on the show." Because I was going on the show the next day. I posted it on Tuesday, and he just was cracking up. And I had watched, when I watched the UFC, I had watched the awkwardness. It almost seemed like the awkwardness he felt standing between the two commentators, one Stephen A. and I don't know who the other guy is. He was standing between them and listening to Stephen A. say the things that he said about Cowboy. You could see his face was like, "Ooh, I can't believe you're saying this right now." And so when we had talked, there was a lot to be said. And I felt like when I posted the video and I put the comments down below, but you shouldn't be questioning people, especially if you haven't done the work that he's done to be in there. And it was very firm, and I I'll say this about every fighter. And when I talk about positivity, and I talk about positivity on Joe Rogan's show, it strictly is like, I may not agree with the way you decide to fight the fight. I may not agree with some of the guys. There's guys in this sport I don't get along with, but I try not to say. I try not to say things about them in a negative light when it comes to, their fighting style or the way they fight. I'll give you an example. Is Kevin Lee. Kevin Lee was having issues with his, conditioning, his cardio, whatever it is, and his performances, but he was a rock star for the first round. I did a full show about him and what he needed to find another mentor because Robert Follis had passed away, his head coach. And now I feel like he has found that at TriStar. And it was just shortly after that had all happened that he seemed lost. And I said, I don't know if it's his cardio. I don't know what it is. If he's just not getting the attention at the gym. He's someone that maybe just needs someone to give him more structure in his fighting style, his fighting game, whatever it is. But something is not working wherever he was training in Vegas. I believe it was at Extreme Couture. And it's just not working for him. He needs to find, and when he went to TriStar, we saw him fight Gillespie. Faraz Zahabi gave him something that he really could use to give him direction in his fighting style, and it showed in that fight. And now maybe it won't show moving on. I don't know, but we're gonna see. I feel like a kid with that amount of talent has the sky's the limit for him. He just needs direction. He needs good coaching. He needs someone to guide him in the fight game. Give him a fighter IQ, and I think when someone like Stephen A comes out and says the things he said, you're really crushing a guy. It doesn't matter. Fighting is not like if I play a team sport, other people are to blame, not just me. And this is the fighting game. Sure, you can blame your coaches and your corners, which sometimes I do, and I did it. I do it sometimes. You got to make the adjustments during the fight, but ultimately it's the fighter, and it's the fighter who's the one that most majority of the fighters, they never try to blame other people. Some do, but majority of them try to take the blame on the chin. I don't think there's ever been a time in my career where I turned to my corner and said it's your guys' fault that I lost, because at the end of the day, if something's not working and your coach is telling you to do it and it's not working, it's you that needs to make the adjustment in the cage, not them. You need to do it. You need to know that it's not working what they want me to do. And the fact that they didn't tell you to do it doesn't mean that you can't change it yourself. And it seemed like Stephen A he had basically called him a quitter. He obviously didn't know the extent of the injury, a broken orbital and a broken nose, and how much that changes the dynamic of how you fight. That change. He said, he should have circled. He should have got away. Get away. I'm trying to figure out whether I lost my eye or not. Like a broken orbital makes you feel like you just can't see. It's double vision, sometimes triple vision. You got, you're seeing four of them, three of them.
Sometimes you can't see it
Sometimes you can't see it all. And then not to mention the pain, from what I understand from Koscheck, he's told me, he's like, you don't get it. It was excruciating pain. And then every time I got hit on it, he's like, I never felt that amount of pain in my life. And I started wondering, am I causing more damage to the point where I'll lose my eye? And as the fight went on, you started noticing Koscheck, he just stopped fighting. He just started circling, staying away. And with Cowboy, he never got a chance.
Survival.
Yeah, he never got a chance. He never got a chance to feel that. And so when I hear someone like Stephen A say that, and then he posted that video, I'm like, oh, come on now.
Well, but when you just think of it this way. I wish it was, I wish it was a different fighter, because Cowboy won't do anything, but there are fighters out there, Nate Diaz, say it about Nate.
Yeah.
Say it about George Masvidal. Now, George Masvidal just fought Ben Askren, not his last fight, but, and that fight lasted 5 seconds. So you didn't learn anything about George Masvidal in those 5 seconds? Because he didn't learn anything about Conor in those 40.
Yeah.
All right? That's what he's saying. And this is where my problem lies. We all, you, I, we're all wrong about something. Somewhere along the way, you're going to be wrong. I'm going to be wrong. And when I'm teaching guys how to do something, especially, officiating, I say, hey, you got to be able to say, I was wrong. I made a mistake. Let me fix that. And how do I fix it? And when Stephen on the show, and he did it twice. He did it when he was standing there with Joe Rogan, and then he did it again when he was up with Bisping and Chael. And he said that the first one he was with Joe, he gave up. He gave up. And it's like, man, no, he didn't give up. He got beat down. And it can happen to anybody. It can happen to a very good fighter. Michael Spinks fought Mike Tyson. He was undefeated. And he got beat down in 90 seconds.
Yeah.
91. All right? Now, does that mean that everything that Michael Spinks did before, oh, he sucks? No. It just means, you know what? Michael Tyson hit him with a shot that he couldn't recover from.
Yep.
And that was from that point, the wheels are coming off of the train and it's going down. You know, and what Stephen A. Smith doesn't have, he doesn't have the fucking fortitude to say, you know what? I shouldn't have said that. I made a mistake in saying that. And he's trying to cover up what is a mistake. You made a mistake. You said something you should never say because that is not what occurred. Now, is it possible that a fighter can quit? Yes, it is. But that's not what you saw. You saw a guy get beat down by a guy who was he did the right things. He landed the big shots, and the other guy was unable to recover. And when you're someone, you know, Michael can be Stephen A. Smith can be whatever he wants to be because he wants to be bombastic and he wants to be the guy that is creating controversy. So I think he kind of likes it. But now he has no idea what the world of MMA is and the people that watch it because it ain't going to, you know, this is a tidal wave doesn't have to be real tall. It's just that it keeps on flowing at that level. Guess what, Steven? Congratulations. The level ain't going to change. And when you're sitting there then saying that you can fight with Joe Rogan, you have just stepped into a pool that you're sinking, son. Stop. You look like a fool. You're talking like a fool. Quit being a fool and just say, I made a mistake.
Yeah, I looked at it that way as well as the fact that Joe hit the nail on the head when he is used to that 30-minute quick talk radio nonsense. And when you're there cage side, calling the fight right there with someone and talking about it right after, we don't need your 2-second quick quotes to make yourself sound like you know what you're talking about like you do for other sports. It's just that's there's no place for that, I think, in combat sports itself. You know, and that's exactly what he was giving us. I didn't see anything. 40 seconds, I didn't learn anything. Like, it just was one of those. It was one of those clickbait material type conversations. But
someone has to go through a war for him to see something.
Yeah,
that makes you stupid.
Yeah, and Joe hit it on the head. But here we are now talking about him, so it worked. Exactly what makes him popular. Here we are talking about him, and it worked. He got exactly accomplished what he wanted to get accomplished. He wanted us, whether it's good or bad, and we've heard this for years. Any news is good news. Okay, it's true, good or bad. I'm in the news. Any news is good news, and that's exactly where he's at. Instead of just easing his way in to the fight fans, he jumped in with the persona of I'm Stephen A. and I'll continue to be the way that I am Stephen A., which I think is good. I think it's okay for him to continue to be that way. But I also think that you got to come with a little bit more knowledge than the fact of what you put out there on the table. And what you said was not knowledgeable. That's the thing. When you talk about basketball or whatever else, whatever other sports you talk about, I think I've only heard you really talk about basketball. But he talks a lot about LeBron. He talks a lot about, used to talk a lot about other guys, you know, Kobe and those guys in the sport. And he would rip into them. And I'm thinking to myself, these guys are the world class, the best players in the game, and you're acting like it's because they had an off night. All of a sudden you could beat them in one-on-one.
That's because Stephen A. Smith's never had an off night. He doesn't know what that's like. Right.
Yeah, well, because he can't admit to himself that he was wrong. That lets you know first that he's had a couple off nights.
That's exactly it.
Can't admit to himself. All those things aside, look, Stephen A. is Stephen A. He just showed with his response to Joe Rogan that he's not going to change. You know, and the fact that he just got a new contract by ESPN lets you know that he feels warranted doing the things that he does because I just got paid pretty well and re-upped on them like shortly before the ESPN deal. So he's like, my job is secure. He feels that because it's preposterous. Anyways, we're gonna get into that.
Hey, okay, but all right, two things you got to admit. Dean Thomas,
he played a great part.
Outstanding parody.
Oh, jeez.
Of Stephen A. and his excellent boxing skills with King Mo holding the mitts. Dean Thomas,
great.
my hat is off to you. You were fantastic, brother.
I thought it was
preposterous.
wonderful. It was preposterous. Yeah, I said it. I said it was preposterous. It was. Anyways, but here's my thing. Who do we like? ESPN's? Are they? You think they're going to continue to use them? You think they're going to continue to use them, or do you think they're going to try to slide somebody else in there?
Well, yeah, this is the part that doesn't make sense to me because why are you sliding him in there? You're not sliding him in because he's knowledgeable. All right, he even admits I don't even know this. Okay, which is absolutely truthful and it's right. He doesn't know it. So you're not bringing him in based upon his knowledge factor. You're bringing him in because of what? Well, you're saying that he has got an appeal and a status with fans that brings a level of notoriety or a level of, attention because he's part of that production. Mm-hmm. If you're going to tell me that more people know Stephen A. Smith than know Joe Rogan, I'm going to tell you're full of shit.
Yeah.
Okay? So right there, it kind of makes whoever the executive producer is saying, I want Stephen on this, you're just not taking a look at what you have. Every time you've got Joe Rogan there, you've got someone that more people know than know Stephen Smith, and you have someone that absolutely knows the sport, someone that can talk about it in an intelligent fashion, someone that can give an expert opinion. And why are you bringing in a guy that is nothing more than just a guy with a bombastic personality?
Yeah. I didn't realize how big he was. I met him before, and he didn't seem that big to me in person. But I saw him standing next to Joe. I'm like, dude, it must have been in heels or something.
It's fun. I met him at the ESPYs. I met him at the ESPY Awards, and we shook hands. And that was a couple years ago. And he's like my size. He's about 6'3".
I met him at the Conor fight. I don't recall him being that big.
Oh, he's tall.
Yeah,
not big.
Yeah, I mean, I don't recall. Anyways, all that stuff aside, the stuff that was going on, all the stuff, the guy that you posted in the snow on your Instagram,
awesome.
Oh my gosh, man, I just was cracking up.
Style.
The guy that made a dance move out of his combination, and he was like out in the snow.
Awesome.
It was great. It was phenomenal. If you guys haven't checked it out, John McCarthy MMA, correct?
Yep.
John McCarthy MMA on his Instagram. It's phenomenal.
Instagram or Twitter.
It was so funny, man. I was cracking up. Yeah, so there was that the Joe Rogan. We started off with that because it got so much play on Instagram. It was on fire by the morning that I went on to Joe's show. So we started off the show with that. It was hilarious, good times. Then we moved into talking about Brendan and the comparison to UFC guys with against Bellator guys, and finally we had been able to have the conversation, but then Brendan hit me up today and said, well, let's continue this conversation on our Food Truck Diaries. So I think we'll be doing Brendan's show sometime maybe this week. And we'll try to get that out on the Food Truck Diaries. We're basically going to battle. He's going to continue to tell me that UFC guys are better than Bellator guys. And I'm going to continue to tell him that he's wrong. That's
he's right. He's right. There are UFC guys that are better than Bellator guys.
And there's Bellator
and
guys
there are Bellator guys that are better than UFC guys. That's where he's making his mistake.
Well,
he's going off of the fact that you have to fight in the UFC for someone to say that you're good. That's ridiculous. The other part that he's not considering is, and he's right about one thing with the UFC is, man, these guys are having to fight killer after killer after killer. Yes, that's true. You're as you're moving up, or if you're that top dog, you're getting just another great fighter coming after you in the next fight and the next fight. And, Brendan, that's why you get beat down in fights and your career is shortened. That's not a good thing for the fighter. It's a good thing for the fan, and it's a good thing for the promotion. It's not a good thing for the fighter. You need to have, the ability to take a step back every now and then and refresh and get yourself back and then come back. Unless you're that, the champion always, that's part about being the champion, is you are always going to be fighting someone that is top notch. That's just the way it is.
So Bellator has about 250 to 300 fighters on their roster.
Yeah.
Okay. UFC has about 600 plus. So they're doubling the roster. So basically, let's just say in each one of our weight classes, we have a top 5 category. Whereas the UFC has top 10 and top 15 because they have so many fighters on their roster. So of course, those guys are going to have to continue to fight the best guys as they get to the top. Whereas our guys will fight 2 or 3 times and they'll finally be in that kind of like top 5 echelon. But then also what I've said to people is, like you just said, is that if you lose one, you go back, you're fighting a tough guy, but you're not fighting world beaters the whole time. But I want to remind people though of this. Conor McGregor didn't fight world beaters his whole life, like his whole career. He fought the Seaver guy. He fought.
Let's go. He started off his UFC career. Started off with Marcus Brimage.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Is he still in the UFC?
No.
Okay, so who's the next guy? No, just who's the next guy?
I think the second fight was Max Holloway, and that was the fight when I had watched Conor when he was part. I think it was Cage Warriors.
Yeah,
he was Cage Warriors champion, and I saw him. I said, he's good, but he's limited. And I saw him get beat by Joe Duffy, and then he comes and he fights Brimage, and he dismantles Brimage, and I go, still not sure. And then when I watched this fight with Max, I go, yeah, he's really good.
Yeah.
He's top tier fighter. He's good. Mm-hmm. And then he went on from Max. He fought Diego Brandao, and then he fought
still with the UFC. I think Brandao still with the UFC.
Fought, Dustin Poirier.
Okay.
And you look at what he did against Dustin Poirier.
Yeah.
No, Brandao's not with the UFC.
There you go.
Seaver's not with the UFC. Brandao's not with the UFC. Brimage is not with the UFC. Dustin Poirier, he's still with the UFC. That's it.
Yeah. So the two guys you mentioned though, Max and Dustin, right? Max went on to be the champ, which was Max come out openly and said, "Look, when I fought him, a little bit of the shit talk got to me." Same thing with Dustin. Obviously, the shit talk got to him. But both of those guys are huge for the weight. And the weight cut, we could potentially say, gets to them. Dustin ends up going up and does very well at lightweight as well because of the weight cut. I mean, like I said, I had talked to him I had trained with him for a little bit with Frankie Edgar, and the weight cut was a factor. He was fighting 145 pounds. He was walking around 185. That's insane. Yeah. That was insane. That was when he was younger. And I'm like, they're training with him. I'm like, I'm 172, 171. I'm like, man, you are huge for 145. There's no way I could put myself through that weight cut. So fighting those two guys learn from their mistake. Dustin eventually goes up because the weight cut was too much for him. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying. Look, my point is, guys like him didn't always fight world beaters. People want to talk about Anderson Silva. He fought Travis Lutter. He fought Talis Latis. He fought who did he fight? What was the other guy? There was a couple other guys. Patrick Cote.
He came off of beating Chris Lieben in his first fight. Then he fought Franklin. He beats Rich Franklin and wins the title. Not sure his next fight, if that was Travis Lutter or not. It was right in there. I believe his next fight was Travis Lutter at
yeah, it was.
It was. So Lutter was next.
And he had some. Then he had Dan Henderson. So he had a really tough fight. Nate Marquardt in there. That was in California at UFC 73. And then he had Patrick Cote. And then Talis Latis.
In between, he had Rich Franklin and James Irving.
James Irving. That was the name I was looking for.
Well, James Irving was thrown together. And that was done at 205 because Affliction was going to have a show that had Fedor against Tim Sylvia and had just an incredible lineup: Josh Barnett and Ben Rothwell and Andrei Arlovsky and Vitor Belfort, and Matt Lindland. And so Dana threw together this show to counter program it that had Anderson Silva, the middleweight champion, but he fought James Irvin.
Got it. But what I'm saying is that these guys throughout their career have not fought the best guys. You know what I mean? Like you're thinking, when I'm thinking in terms of like the guys that are world beaters, the 185 pound division has always been a little, I feel like, is a bit under talented. Has not been the most talented of guys that have come up in that division. You know, you have Anderson, who is, you know, someone who sticks out. You know, John Jones, someone who sticks out at 205. But a lot of the guys below there, they're not the best guy. At 170 and below, I've always said this, the 170 and below, I feel like they're a lot stronger. They're always stacked. They always have a lot of talent there, and you're fighting the best guys all the time. But when we're having this conversation about it, the guys at Strikeforce, they weren't fighting the best guys all the time, but they ended up proving that they were the best guys in the world when they came over. You know, so I don't think that what Brendan's saying, it should hold any water when it comes to the fact that you don't need to fight the best guys all the time, especially knowing that fighting is so mental. Your confidence needs to be at an all-time high for you to perform at your best. When you're the champion, you should always be performing at your best because you're the champion. You can't get any higher confidence than being the champion. When you're the guy trying to get to the champion, it doesn't take much for your confidence to be killed. You can have a bad training session, a bad day, a bad camp, whatever it is. Your confidence could end up getting shot. Champs, they're just that talent mentality. The champion mentality is that you're always confident because you're the champ. I'm the champ. There's no way this guy's beat me. I'm the champ. There's no way. Don't get me wrong. If they lose, obviously we see it all the time.
Eventually, everyone does.
But they're the champ, and so to say that they're not,
almost everyone.
to say that the guys in these other organizations need to fight the best guys all the time, I think it's false. It's completely false.
No, the whole point is this. You know, Brendan, you fought in the UFC. Congratulations, that was great. Okay, you had a couple of good fights, but you know, I can point out fights that he had against guys that beat him that lost to guys outside of the UFC. If Brendan had fought, you know, back when he was fighting, they had brought Fedor Emelianenko over, is because Brendan is a UFC fighter, he's better than Fedor Emelianenko, he's going to win? Does that make sense?
No.
You're a UFC fighter, you're better. Come on. It doesn't add up. UFC has some really good fighters, and if you're going to ask me, they have absolutely more depth, as we were talking about 600 fighters on the roster, especially in the lighter weight classes, because, you know, that's the 145s, the 155s, the 170s, they're stacked with a lot of talent. A lot of talent.
Yeah.
And as it gets higher, it's not quite as stacked. It's not, you know, but you can't sit there and say because you fight for this promotion, that makes you a better fighter. That's just a ridiculous statement, and one that cannot be backed up. Now, they get more attention, they get more publicity, they get more out of the media as far as rankings and stuff, and that's okay. You know, that's just part of it. But it's just, you know, Anthony Pettis was the lightweight champion. He's having problems now. If he came to Bellator, it's because he's no good? Sergio, his brother, just came and had a beautiful performance against a guy that we both know is very tough.
Super tough.
But let's take a look and say, because Sergio just came over from the UFC, Sergio just had beaten Joe Benavidez. So if Joe Benavidez becomes the UFC champion, that means that Sergio Pettis now would not be able to compete with him at all.
Well, the reverse.
Come on, man.
The reverse logic is this: a guy who was the UFC champion, he was the WC champ, he was the UFC champ. He came over to Bellator and was on a losing skid. Benson Henderson. What does that say? What does that say to you? Doesn't mean he was fighting murderers row all the time. He was the champ for so long. Even beat guys at 170 there.
Well,
he tried to fight a guy at
murderers row for a while.
Yeah, his first fight in Bellator was just a dismantling when he fought Korshkov. It was horrid. Oh God, I felt so bad for him. I was watching on TV. I'm like, oh, just.
I was watching closer than that.
Yeah, I bet you were. I bet you were. I'm just thinking to myself, like, man, this is not this. You should just, like, your corner should throw the talent, like, before you really get hurt.
He didn't win a round. I mean, and some of them were. He was close to being, so he just showed his toughness and who he was as a fighter, but was outdone by Koreshkov in that fight.
in that, yeah, not in, but then he ended up going on to lose his kid too at lightweight. I mean, he lost to Chandler.
Yeah.
He lost to who else did he lose to?
But he's recovered and he's coming back now.
Patricia.
He lost to Patricky. Yeah, he is coming back. Sometimes you just got to settle in and get adjusted.
Then he broke his leg, and so he missed his last fight. But
yeah,
that can happen.
Is that what happened? I didn't hear what happened.
Yeah, broke his leg when he was training for Chandler.
Oh man, I think that was kind of a blessing in disguise, to be honest, because a 3-round fight.
He needs a 5-round fight.
Yeah, he needs a 5-round fight against Chandler. I don't think a 3-round fight would have done him any good. Just my personal opinion. What else? Brendan and I will just have to continue this conversation on his Fruit Truck Diaries, and we'll see exactly what happens. Realistically, I mean, like the best comparison would be Benson. For him to understand that, Ben fought Murderers Row, continued to fight Murderers Row there, and came over and couldn't beat the guys in Strikeforce. And let's not to mention, like, he had a really, really tough fight with Adam Piccolotti, which a lot of people thought that he lost, that Adam should have won.
Very close. Oh,
it was a very close fight. And so when we're having this conversation, that's a classic example of why people should understand that the Bellator guys are just as good as the UFC guys or any other organization guys. And when you trade away someone like Demetrius, you're just letting everyone know that you're not interested in having the best guys. You're interested in having You're interested in having the guys that potentially will sell tickets.
Put the butts in the seats.
Yeah. I'm interested to see what's gonna happen with that division over there. Because Henry relinquished the title, or they stripped him of it, and then now with Joseph Benavidez will be there fighting for it. But who do they have after that? I mean, I don't even know.
Who's Joe fighting for that title?
Exactly. Yeah, I've seen the guy fight. He's really scrappy, but he shouldn't be able to beat Joe. I mean, it's got kind of a weird name.
It's like the Figueiredo or whatever that his
Figueroa.
last name. Hold on, I'm pulling it up right now.
He said the Figueiredo.
Davison Figueiredo. Do you know who
that is?
Yeah, see, no. I've seen him fight. I can't say his name. That's why I didn't say it. I'm just being honest.
Oh no. Yeah. So I mean, other than that, like it was. I think that him and I will have plenty to talk about. We'll battle it back and forth, and that was what Joe and I talked about as well. And then we talked about the media credentials. We talked about media credentials on why. What was the topic on? How did we start that topic? That topic was. Oh man.
Oh, you were talking about Dana. Basically, he sets the
agenda.
Not the agenda for the media, and they just follow it.
What did you say, Dave?
The narrative.
Yeah, he sets the narrative for the media for them to write, and then the reason why is because when you guys look back at the history of it all, basically Dana had cut off the MMA websites and the media from coming to the events if they ever wrote anything bad about the show. And if they said something bad about one of the fighters, they said something bad about the promotion, they said something bad about Dana, it was like these guys were removed. And look,
Sherdog.
Yeah, Sherdog. But then look what just happened to Ariel Helwani. He works for ESPN, for Christ's sake. And I'm not trying to say I'm not an Ariel fan, but let's be real. They were at where were they at? And he put up T-Mobile Arena. They had signs up apparently of Ariel Helwani everywhere.
They had his picture where he couldn't go.
Wow.
That's awesome. Wow.
That's awesome. But then they wanted a interview with him and McGregor, so he got to walk past a lot of his pictures that were up on the wall.
Oh man,
that's great. Come on. Like the truth of what happens, and this is where people are going to say, "Oh, you see, you're a hater on the UFC." I don't care. I'm not a hater on the UFC. I love the UFC. Sherdog had a writer named Josh Gross. Josh Gross, still writes for The Athletic right now. He's got a podcast. I think it's called Point Gross or Gross Point Blank or something like that. But it was the Ultimate Fighter. I think it was season 4. It was, in fact, the one that Travis Lutter ended up winning the middleweights, and Matt Serra ended up winning the lightweights to get their the welterweight to get their chance at fighting
for the title,
the champion for the title. But those fights were all done, and we would sign a paper with the production company that said, if we put out information that of who won any of the fights, we had to pay them $5 million, which I laughed at because like, dude, you can take all of my earnings for my entire career. I didn't have $5 million. So hey, you ain't gonna get nothing. But it was like, and that was fine. I wasn't gonna tell anyone, but somehow, and I don't know how, Josh Gross found out that Matt Serra and Travis Lutter were the guys that had won and were going to fight for the championships against George St. Pierre and Anderson Silva. And on a radio show, he said, well, spoiler alert if you don't want to know. And then he put it out. And Dana exploded. And I don't blame Dana for exploding on that. I can understand why he was pissed. And he right away, cut Josh Gross out of being able to come to any UFC, as a media person. And then he cut out SureDog, taking away all the writers from SureDog, their credentials. And then he started doing it with other ones, and then he attacked Loretta Hunt over an article she did about the UFC and their credentials for the fighters' trainers and their managers. Because Dana he didn't like managers, and so he started taking away the credentials for managers so they couldn't be in the back. So it was easy for Dana to go talk to the fighter without the manager there to represent their client and stuff. And it's dirty pool. It's smart. I don't blame Dana. I'm telling you, I think that's a smart move, Dana. But it's dirty. But and he got mad at her for that, and so she lost all her stuff. And he has always had this thing where he eventually got it to where the media, they're afraid of him. They're afraid of losing their ability to do their job, to be able to go to the show, to be there live, to talk to fighters in person, because, their employer, if they can't get into the show, their employer can look and say, well, we got to get someone that can go into the show. So they're going to, let you go, you lose your job, and another writer gets to go in. So he's had an influence. And, I don't think it's right. But goddamn, I give him credit for doing it, and I really do. Because it's a way of, if you can control the media, you can control the narrative.
Yes, that's exactly what he does. And as a any media person who is covering that, they are supposed to kind of give their unbiased opinion on what they saw in the fight. Now, we talked about Stephen A. giving your unbiased opinion, so I don't sound like a hypocrite here. I'm all for him giving his unbiased opinion about the fight. Okay.
Yeah.
But calling someone a quitter, that to me was different than giving your unbiased opinion. Like
saying he gave up.
He's saying he gave up. Yeah. I don't think you should say that about any athlete, period. Unless the person legit just stopped on the stool and said, no, I'm not going, I'm not answering the bell.
And we've seen that. You could, if you want to say that Roberto Duran gave up in the fight against Sugar Ray Leonard, you can say that. He did. Yeah. He gave up. Okay. That is not what happened to Cowboy Cerrone. Okay. There was only one reason the fight ended, and it wasn't because Cowboy gave up, and it wasn't because, it was Herb Dean was smart enough to say, you can't defend yourself, and my job is to protect you, and I'm stopping this fight. And he did that, and it was in 40 seconds of time, and that's because Conor McGregor is a damn good fighter that can hurt anybody quickly. Could he do the same thing? What he just did, could he do that to Khabib? Yes, it's possible. Do I think it's going to happen? No, I don't. No. But is it possible? Absolutely, it's possible.
Yeah.
It's possible that he could do that to Kamaru Usman. It's possible that Kamaru Usman could do that to Conor. That's just fighting. Mm-hmm. That's just the way it is. But you don't sit there and say someone gave up when they've never given up in their life.
Yeah. So the one thing that when I was talking with Joe was this, is he said, and I disagreed, but he said that if we were to put together a show between UFC, Bellator, and I included one and Ryzen as well, if we took those 4 shows and we put together like a supercard, a year-end show, New Year's Eve, like how Ryzen and Bellator just did, you did one show of, let's just say, 15 fights. Okay, like a prelim card, all that stuff, and you come all the way up. He said that one show wouldn't do as well as a Khabib and Conor rematch.
He's probably right.
You think so?
Yeah.
I think, here's the thing. My thought process is this, is if I put, and I used Islam as a thing, because he used Khabib as a star.
Islam
that.
Makhachev?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm not saying he should be the main event. I'm simply saying if I put Islam Makhachev there, okay. But I'm saying like if I have Stephen Thompson versus MVP, I've got Islam Makhachev.
That's the fight I want.
Yeah, Islam Makhachev against Michael Chandler. I've got Patchy Mix against somebody over there. I've got Patricio. We're not using champions then, so not Patricio.
Okay, you can't use Patricio.
So then we'll use some. We'll use someone else. Maybe we'll headline it with a champion versus champion, so people like to tune in. So it could be Patricio versus Volkanovski or Max Holloway.
I would like that.
You know what I mean?
Love
Like we can have something like that. You could have Douglas Lima versus Usman as the main event, or whatever it is. A Stipe versus Bader. Like whatever you want to do to make this a main event, make it. But then let's say you take Demetrius Johnson versus whoever wins their 125-pound title now. Or even a rematch with Henry Cejudo. Okay, you take, somebody else, and now he's not the champion at 125. See what I did there? Okay, and you have Demetrius Johnson.
Trilogy.
You have a trilogy.
With Henry Cejudo.
You know what I mean? Like you take those fights. Now, when he says no, I disagree only because of this. Every 4 years, we watch this thing called the Olympics, a small little thing where they put everyone around and from other countries. Okay, and
what is that?
Yeah, see, exactly. Old people don't. You guys created the Olympics, you old people.
Thank you.
But that was when they used to wrestle in like banana hammocks. It was
all right, man. Wrestling in banana hammocks is good.
Yeah, and so it depends on what she looks like. So here's the thing: I feel like when you take the Ryzen from their promotion and they market in Japan, that's a lot more viewership that we would normally get if it was just the UFC, whoever versus whoever, Conor and Khabib. And then you take Islam as well. You take him. Maybe even take another top Dagestan guy or Russian guy, from over there. We've got a top Russian guy also too, the one that's fighting
Amazov.
God, I don't know
By
why.
Ned Ruth.
Yes,
You have a hard time with Russian names. Why?
Amosov, and then the other one,
Nurmagomedov, and you got fucking Islam. You got a bunch of them. You're used to them. Anybody else, you can't say their name.
Yeah, the one that's fighting Ryan Bader.
The one that's fighting Ryan Bader?
Yes.
Nemkov.
God, I think I get the two of them mixed up, and so I start
Vadim Nemkov.
That guy's a savage. Good God. Him and Amosov, both of them are just fuck. But you take them as well. You can mix them in. We take guys from from the UK, maybe even you take a guy maybe like Roy McDonald, mix him in there if he comes from PFL. You take these and you get marketing dollars behind them all, but then you also take them from different parts of the country or different parts of the world. Now you're marketing in those other areas. Normally, like people from somewhere in Mexico or whatever, not everyone wants to see Conor and Khabib. Not everyone wants to see it. But now if we put fighters on that card from other countries, like you see in the Olympics, you're going to get a lot more people tuning in than you would if it's just those two people.
Well, you're saying tuning. There's a difference between tuning in and paying money out for
but as well, the rest of the people that actually buy pay-per-views, people don't realize that not the rest of the world buys pay-per-views. You've only got a handful of countries that actually pay for pay-per-view. The other countries just get it on TV. Or they stream it. So they're not paying for it anyways. So when you're talking about viewerships and pay-per-views, like we're talking about, you have Canada, Australia, Japan, US, and UK.
I think Joe is going off of he's going off the star factor. He's going off of what was called a Q rating. Mm-hmm. The people, if you take that guy's picture and you put it in front of somebody, do you know who this guy is? How many people are going to know who Conor McGregor is? A lot.
Yeah.
And if conversely, if you put, MVP against Stephen Thompson, which I think would be an incredible fight. I would love to see that. But you could take MVP's picture and not half of the people are going to say, that's Michael Venom Page that were able to say who Conor McGregor was.
I agree with you.
He's just had Conor's had a much bigger platform and been in more things, and there's a reason why he was at the Grammys and Michael Venom Page wasn't.
Yep.
But I think that's what Joe is going off of. Look, you need stars to get put butts in the seats, and those stars of the magnitude of a Nurmagomedov and a Conor McGregor, those are going to outsell that specialty show with all those people. I'll say he's right, but the specialty show would sell. and it would sell a lot. And when you look at it, and this, you got to look at everything. You're balancing everything out. How much are you paying Khabib Nurmagomedov and Conor McGregor for that show compared to what are you paying for these other guys? You know, everything balances out in the end, you know, as far as making money. So, you know, if the Khabib Conor would make, you know, have more numbers in pay-per-view, I'll say, okay, I'm not sure it will make the promotion more money. In the end, how much money are you putting out? That's going to say a lot about how much you're going to take in.
Yeah, you also have to remember this though as well. Stars are not, pay-per-view is not making what pay-per-views make from before. And I know I know recently they just fought. I do understand that. And if you're going to hit the highest number, but it's not going to. Pay-per-views have changed dramatically since even they fought, and the number just keeps getting lower and lower.
Just
viewership itself.
Yeah, but just to get a UFC pay-per-view now, you first have to subscribe to ESPN Plus.
Yeah,
you know, so you know it's a different world, and it's my dad is one of the funniest ones about it because he goes I was just talking to Joey Coco Diaz on his podcast, and he goes, I don't even know how to get this stuff anymore. He says, you got to go to this thing, and you go to, and they've made it where it's hard. You know, if you're going to watch a UFC show and you're going to be someone like you and I who watch every fight, I've got to go to UFC Fight Pass. I've got to have either a monthly or yearly subscription to Fight Pass. Then I can go to ESPN for, the prelims there. And then I have to have ESPN Plus, and I have to buy it and get it on and then stream it onto my TV. And so it's not easy to do anymore, man. I mean, they're making it to where you actually have to be fundamentally kind of sound in the technology department. But, I think some of that with young people, that's no big thing. Older people, it's kind of a big thing.
Yeah,
turn them off.
It's funny you say that. I was actually watching the prelims I was trying to watch the prelims for the Cowboy and Conor fight. And I clicked on the prelims. It said Cowboy Conor prelims on ESPN. I click on it. It was a college basketball game.
Yeah, because that was overriding it in the beginning. Because
it was the end of it, but it was still like 6 minutes left. So then I was like, shit, what do I do?
Yeah.
So I was flipping around, and just so happens that I ran.
You had to find another channel that they had put it on.
Yep.
To actually watch it, and then you had to flip it back.
Yep. And then but that's the thing. As soon as it came on the original channel was supposed to be on, it shut off. Yep. And I was like, shit. I'm like, the only thing I can think of is they went back to the channel it was originally supposed to be on, so I flipped back to that, and there it was. But it's just it went to commercial when they changed it over. So when they changed it over, I missed like probably half the round because it took me a second to realize because I had got up and was doing some stuff in between the commercial break. I come back, I'm like, fuck, the commercial's still on? And then I walked back and started doing something else. I come back down, I'm like, fuck, it's basketball. Like it's something else was on. I can't remember what it was. Like, how did the shit? I flipped it back to the original channel it was supposed to be on, and there it was. Yeah, yeah, I don't know. It just is one of those things. The paywalls are there. It's a pain in the ass. But I think the overall take of it though too is look, maybe the first one I think with the marketing dollars may do about 2 million, 2.4. It'll do well. But then as the companies start to grow, that will I think eventually do a lot better, okay, than anything else. I think.
Well, I think one of the big things, and Joe kind of brought it up, is it doesn't benefit the UFC. And he's right. It doesn't benefit the UFC.
Right now.
Right now. And that's the whole thing. But eventually, and you try to tell people this, and obviously there's some companies that they've been around almost forever, it seems like. But, when you start a business, and you've started business, I have. You start a business to, make that business grow and to sell the business. Just the same as the UFC has been sold multiple times, and Lorenzo bought it eventually to sell it. And he did at a great profit. Congratulations to him. That's why he's a great businessman. But to stay at the top is not easy. And everybody, around you, as they're growing, they're catching you. Because it's like pushing levels. It takes you so much time to get to this next level. It's easy down here to get into these levels, and you can catch up fairly fast. And then, as they're pushing through, then you're having a hard time pushing through those same levels. But you're close, and that's going to happen. It's going to happen. And eventually, that's when I think you're going to see there will be that crossover promotion eventually where you're seeing fighters from the UFC fighting fighters from another promotion, hopefully Bellator, hopefully ONE FC, PFL, those kind of things. That would be nice to see because that's what fighting is about. It's not about the letters on the mat. It's about the fighters standing on it.
Yeah, what Joe brought up a good point was that he goes, how come in boxing we don't see promotions involved in any of that stuff? No one hears about the promotions. We don't give a shit about the promotions.
I say that all the time.
And I say, well, because the promotion doesn't own the fighters like they do right here. Now, normally you have the manager and the promotion working together versus in this case where the promotion is like, fuck the manager, like you just said earlier. That's kind of the position that they're in. Like they're trying to do deals, sometimes backroom deals without the manager around. And I give you for instance, they did the same shit with Luke Rockhold, and Luke Rockhold decided to go ahead and agree to something without his manager there, and that's what happened. And everyone's like, well, shit. Now what do we fucking do?
Yeah,
they said they're going to take care of me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those are probably the last words you should listen to when having this conversation with Josh Thompson. When they say, because Rockhold came to me, he's like, oh yeah, don't worry, I'll be good. Don't worry. He said we're going to take care of me. That he guaranteed to take care. I was like, oh, okay. Interesting.
Yep.
Interesting. Yeah.
Anyway. And that will happen as long as you continue to win.
Yes.
And when you don't, just remember that they're going to be there to take care of you.
Yeah. Fighting's one of those sports. I think all professional sports, it's very rough. Look, if you don't get it written down on contract, it never existed. Yep. Just you see it all the time. I get mad when I see like NFL players, basketball players holding out for money, this and that. I'm thinking to myself, yeah, but you have a contract already. You agreed and you signed. But when you're trying to renegotiate halfway through your contract, I'm like, all right, now I'm just mad at you because you're an idiot. Okay, you agreed to that money and you agreed to that contract. Play out your time, maybe try to get it done.
If it was good enough when you signed it, it's good enough now.
Yeah, it should be good enough now, and I'm okay with. I'm fine with fighters like before their last fight, maybe 2 fights before their last 2 fights. Like, hey, you know what? I'd like to try and renegotiate because in fight game they want to try to strike while the iron's hot, but you still continue to fight though. You don't stop fighting because, they won't re-sign me with 2 fights left. Well, they don't have to. And the same thing in the NFL and the NBA. Like, no, I want more money. I have 2 years left on my contract. Well, I don't have to re-sign you. And you can sit out if you want. That's a prick move to do. You'll see a lot of times in fighting, whether it's UFC, Bellator, they'll always try to get you re-signed before your last fight because they don't want you to leave. They want to keep you. Yeah. And, in the NFL and the NBA, they can franchise tag you in the NFL, and franchise you, which means you're getting paid what the top guy in your
top 5%.
Yeah, top 5% of your guys are getting paid in that position that you play. So, for those of the people that complain about that, I'm like, dude, you're getting paid pretty damn well. You know what I mean?
The problem is when you are the top of that top 5% and they want to pay you at the bottom of that top, that's where your problems come in.
Yeah, but then sometimes and they can franchise you, I believe, more than once, which is that sucks as well.
They can.
Yeah, I feel like that needs to be skewed a little bit to where they can only franchise you just 1 year, one year, and then they have to skip a year before they can try to franchise you again. But by then your contract would be done because otherwise you would leave. Normally they franchise you when they don't have a contract with you. So, other than that, there was a lot of good things that we talked about, and I talk so fast. And
yes, you do.
I talk so fast, and I even had some hate mail. Someone came to me and goes,
"Oh my
man,
God, you're kidding! Someone had hate mail on you? That's just horrible."
They slid up in my DMs. They slid up in my DMs and they said, well, fuck, it would have been a good show had you let Joe talk it all, but you talked 90% of the time. And I was like, well, last I checked, it was Joe's show. So you can hear Joe tomorrow with someone else where he will talk probably more than the other person will. But that's the point of a show when you have a guest, is to let your guest talk. And that's kind of that's how things work a little bit. I know, he asks the questions and I try to talk as much as I can to answer the question. Anyways, but it was pretty fun. I had a good time.
I thought you did a great job on it. I thought it was interesting. I thought it flowed well. I thought you guys were bouncing stuff off of each other. It was fun to listen to. I liked the exchange. It was funny because it was clear, and this is, you know, Joe is a busy guy, and he's a phenomenal representative for the sport of MMA, especially that promotion called the UFC, which is that's where he works. But you could tell there's certain people that you were bringing up that he really didn't know. And that was okay. You know, I'm sure he's seen him fighting. If he saw a picture of him, he would go, "Oh yeah, I know that guy."
Yeah.
You know, if he saw the guy in the ring or in the cage, he would, "Oh, I know that guy." But just the name itself, I wasn't sure if. I don't think he knew that guy.
Yeah. Yeah, he gave me a fighter though too. There was one, I think, in the 145-pound division that I didn't know his name. I didn't know who he was. I can't remember.
From the UFC?
Yeah. Yeah, he's from the UFC, 145. I can't remember who he. No, I can't remember. He had
Cater?
Cater.
Calvin Cater?
Yes.
Dude's good.
Yeah.
Got great boxing.
Great boxing. I just agreed with him because I assumed I didn't know who he was. I know
good.
I've heard the name, but I can't recall watching him
Calvin
fight.
he just lost his last fight. I think it was his last fight against Zabit.
Yeah.
Magomed Sharaparov, you know, but he was coming on in the third round, and Calvin has always been this guy that everyone knew, man. This guy's good, man. His hands are really good. He's strong. He hits hard, and if they fought again, that fight could absolutely go the other way.
Yeah, everyone had talked to me about, or Joe had said that day. He's like, had it went to the fourth and fifth round, I think he would have lost. I think Zabit would have lost.
Yeah, very possible.
Because Zabit looked extremely tired. He looked exhausted. Looked like he had nothing left in the tank. But I also know, as I've fought plenty of 5-round fights, that sometimes in that second and third round you lose it and then you get it back in the fourth and fifth.
Yeah,
sometimes your body just needs to recover. Sometimes the adrenaline dump happens and you recover. You get your second wind and you feel fresh again. You know,
and many times when you're getting hit with hammers, it doesn't get better, and that's what you're facing when you got Cater on the other side of it. So
you brought up Joey Diaz. You brought up his show. Talk to me, Goose.
Dude, you know, first off, Joey Coco Diaz is one of the funniest human beings on the face of the planet. He is hysterical. You know, and he's such a good guy, and I've always we've gotten along, and I've been on his show probably 3 or 4 times, but you know, sat down and talked with him, and Joey's funny because he always likes to go into the police stuff, and he talks about, you know, because he spent time in prison and stuff. But he was he watched the Aaron Hernandez 3-part special, and I had talked to him on one of his podcasts years ago, and I had said that I thought part of the reason for what happened in the O.J. Simpson thing with his wife Nicole and what really happened and why he lost it. I said I truly believe he has chronic traumatic encephalopathy, CTE. He's got brain damage from all the years of football, from all the hits, and that he lost his temper and wasn't able to bring it down, and it led to that ultimate taking of 2 lives. That doesn't give it where it's okay. Doesn't excuse it. It doesn't excuse it. It doesn't make it okay. It's wrong, but it's something that you can look at and say, he's got an actual, disability, diminishing of capabilities as far as being able to control a personality now. And I think when that's why OJ ends up, he got arrested in Las Vegas. He got arrested at Lorenzo Fertitta's hotel, and ended up spending time in prison for robbery, based upon not making good decisions, not being able to control his anger. And then you saw Aaron Hernandez, a young guy, not making good decisions, and that whole thing came about, when when he killed himself, he was 27 years of age. He hadn't played football since 23, 24 years of age. And at his death, when he killed himself, they took his brain and they said that he had the worst case of CTE in someone that young that they had ever seen.
Wow.
And that he had the CTE of a person that was approximately 45 to 50 years of age with that type of damage. And so, look at your brain is everything, and it is who you are as a person, and the decisions you make, and we all make decisions through life, some of them good, a lot of them bad. But when your brain isn't working the right way because it's got this disease, and that disease we know is there in combat sports, you can cross that line and go past what we would all stop at. And so he's always been interested in that. So he really got into talking about fighters and fighters being injured, fighters being damaged. And so we really talked a lot about, man, the fighters only have so many fights, and Cowboy Cerrone was one of the ones that he kind of wanted to talk about. And I said, you could look at Cowboy for the years that he fought, all the way up until basically I would say 2017, he hadn't been damaged that much consecutively. He obviously got submitted by Benson, a couple of times. He took the knockout loss to Pettis when he got kicked to the body. Okay, and but that's not something that's his brain. It was a body shot, and his liver got attacked, and that can drop anybody. But he had a couple of fights that were tough. He had the Nate Diaz fight where he took a lot of damage.
Yeah,
and he took a lot of shots. But really, somewhere around 2016. 2017, he started taking a lot of damage. And, I talk about, you can only crash that car so many times before the car doesn't work. And, when you start taking these damaging blows and you're getting, put down onto the canvas and guys are still attacking you and hitting you with shots like Masvidal did. And then Darren Till, got into him. His fight against Leon Edwards, he made it through the end, but man, he took some heavy shots in that thing. So, again, you were starting to see him every fight. He's taking more and more damage throughout those fights than he ever did, in the 35, 40 fights before. The last 10 fights, he's taken more damage in those 10 fights than he did in the 40 fights before it. And that's why you're seeing him slow down as a fighter. It just happens.
Yeah, I mean, Joe, I can say that I'm officially retired. I can finally say it. And the thing is you have to say it sometimes just to say what you just said. Is I realized I was taking more shots than I should have been taking. And I don't want to live that lifestyle. I didn't want to be in there as a punching bag to anybody, and I was taking more in training. And that's the thing. People only see the ones you take in the fight. They don't realize that you're taking more in training too, because there's young, talented studs in my gym, and those guys are whooping your ass too. It's not just not just the one guy in the cage that you're fighting. It's the lead up to it. It's all the other shots you take in there. And that's the hardest part. And so when you're telling me all the things that, that he went through, it's exactly what happened. And I could see myself getting hit more often than I wanted to. When I fought Patricky, there was never a moment where I got hit throwing my punch and on the way out I was getting hit. Like, no one I stayed in the pocket too long, but I got in and got out as fast as I could because I knew he had power, and it still wasn't fast enough. Yeah. That just let me know that it was not. Your time's up. Yeah. Now you have to have that conversation with yourself every day in the mirror. Like, when is enough enough? I have everything I want. I've got 2 gyms. I've got a clothing line. I've got a podcast with you. I work for Bellator. I'm an analyst. I get to travel around the world and do amazing things with all really cool people. Like, if you think about it, and even podcast Dave, no matter how much I hate him, I still like him. You know what I mean? But it's true. These are things that you need to have that conversation with yourself. And I look at him and I see how he is with his son, how great he is with his son. But is it worth it? Is it in the long run? Like, your motivation level with CTE, it goes down. It's almost like a state of depression. You don't have it in you to train harder because you can't. You don't have it in you to want to be motivated to go do more things because you can't. Your brain is just not able to function and fire like it used to. And I don't know if it was Father Time that caught me or if it was just the fact maybe because I had taken some damage, you know, throughout my fight. There was only a handful of fights that I actually took a lot of damage. You know, the Eves fight outside of the kick, I took no damage outside of the kick. You know, the Hermes Franca fight, I took damage in the third round. All my other fights, I had a couple little shots here and there, but I don't ever recall like majority of my fights, I left with almost no marks. You know, my third Gilbert fight was the one I probably took the most damage in that fight, but I got hit with some clean shots. But I felt like
you both took the most damage in that fight.
Exactly, it was.
Yeah.
I took some shots in the second fight, a lot of shots in the second fight, but it was a lot of mixing up of everything. And I just look at him. And towards the end of my career, I look at him and exactly what you said. Like his last 10 fights is probably he's taking more damage in probably the last 3 or 4 that he took almost his whole career. And I looked at myself too, and I felt like I hadn't taken a whole lot of damage up until the Tony Ferguson fight. And then I took that fight, took a ton of damage in that fight. Then I went to Bellator. One fight, really no damage. Second fight, really no damage. But I could also feel the difference of when I got hit and how I felt when I got hit versus like just walking through it. And once you know, I could come to grips with that. Every day I would tell myself, dude, you're getting hit and you feel these shots now. I never used to feel them, you know? And then now when you feel them, you're like, all right, this isn't the same. This is not what I fell in love with. This sport is not this feeling of training and getting hit, and it's not the same anymore. And I never wanted to be anyone's punching bag. You know, so I can straight up just officially say that, you know, I'm retired, and that's kind of the best thing. I think it is the best thing. I enjoy everything I have going right now. Scott Coker, my relationship now is because of everything that I've done with you, with this guy over here, you know, with Dave, and it's just the friends that we have on the Bellator set and the production team, and you know, I'm really good friends with Rich Chow and everyone that works for Bellator, Kogan, you know, and Jordan and all them, you know, but. It really, like when you're talking about Cowboy, it's tough. It's tough, man.
It is.
Because I want him to have a good life with his son after. You know,
a lot of it comes down to, you know, when something is that big that basically, you know, says who you are. And, you know, Cowboy's known as a fighter. I mean, a crazy guy, you know, flies crazy planes, jumps on wakeboards, does all the crazy, but man, he's a fighter. Fight anytime, anywhere, anybody, doesn't matter. It's hard to walk away, you know. And I've said it before. Fighting is addictive. It is, you know. And there's different types of guys. You know, there's the guys. You know, some of the guys that you trained with. Frank Shamrock was a guy that never liked fighting, never liked it, hated it, but he was good at it, so he could make money doing it. So he did it. And then there's guys that you know what, it's good and I make money on it. And there's guys that love it. And I think Cowboy, although just before the fight, he doesn't love it in the back, but he does love it. He loves everything about it. And it basically, you know, says who he is. And it's going to be that he's going to have to sit down and talk to his wife, and he's going to have to sit down and talk to people that care about him. And there comes a point where you got to say, yeah, it's time. And it's okay. It's okay to say that, and it's a good thing because there's more aspects of life that will open up for you. You know, you'll have more time for other things because you're not going to be training as much and doing things. But man, you know, it's no different than being a stupid referee. There comes, you know, I have people all the time. Do you miss it? Fuck yes, I miss it. I miss everything about it because I loved what I did, and I loved always trying to figure out ways of being better and how to do something better and how to make it. But there comes a point, and you got to say, 25 years, that's enough. It's time. Don't be the guy that tries to hang on too long. Don't be the guy that's trying to fight too long. There's something else out there for you. You just got to find it. I
can tell you that I don't miss it. I don't miss it. I don't miss it at all. I walk.
You know, that is the perfect. You couldn't ask for a better statement from you. I don't miss it.
I don't. I walk past
do you love the sport of MMA?
I can love the sport and still not miss it.
Bingo.
I walk past the cage now and I see and hear and feel those guys getting hit and those girls.
You go, damn.
And I'm just like, I don't miss that at all.
Yeah.
I don't miss it all. Now, throughout my career, I couldn't wait to get back in the gym. But we were talking about Cowboy, and I'm saying like when we were talking about Cowboy, but we started off the show though talking about T Wood, and then he basically came out saying that like he burned through his championship money. And so when I think about that, right, here he is young, still fighting, not super young, but he's still pretty young, still fighting, still has the chance to still make money to recover, which is great. That just lets you, I want everyone to understand that he went through money, and he has a whole life still ahead of him to live, and he's dedicated his life to fighting. Cowboy, he's going through his brain, and he has a whole nother life to live after fighting. You have to put the two things in perspective. Like money you could potentially still make. You can't do shit to fix your brain. You can do little things that maybe will help you a little bit more, but in the long run, it's just going to all happen faster.
Yeah.
So when I'm sitting here talking about him, like it just, you got to remember there's a whole nother Cowboy. I don't know how old is he, 36, 35, somewhere in 36. There. He's got another 40 years to live, God willing.
Yeah.
You got a whole nother life to live at where you're at now. And do you want to live that with or without brain cells? Like it's just with being able to do all the things that you're able to do, function, have conversations with your kids, a longer life. Like he seems like he loves being a dad, and
just the fact that, it's everything that Donald has done in his career, and the way he always brings his grandma. She's at all his fights. And you see now that, he has a son and how he's bringing his son. I love the fact that he's bringing his son in the cage. And I love the fact when Chael brought his son, for his last fight. And he wasn't sure it was going to be his last fight, but it was his last fight against Lyoto. And he had his son at the weigh-ins, and he had his son at everything. And I love that. Make him part. Because that's special. Your dad is special, and it's special that you get to take part in it. But this is the part that people don't realize. There's a group, and it's the Retired Fighters Fund from the ABC, the Association of Boxing and Combative Sports, has got a charity. I'm part of it, and the Retired Fighter Fund. And please, if you think about giving to something, please think about giving to the Retired Fighters Fund, because the money goes to people that you have watched. It goes to some boxers. It's gone to MMA fighters. I'm not going to sit here and say how much we give or who we've given it to. But one of the people, and I'll bring him up, is Gary Goodrich. Is a guy from UFC 8, and Gary fought in the UFC, fought in Pride, fought in K1, fought everywhere. And I've known Gary since before I knew him in the UFC, because I used to arm wrestle, and he was the world champion in arm wrestling, and just a phenomenal human being. And he is so diminished now, and he's trying to get help for a lot of his problems. But we brought him to the ABC conference to have him speak about stuff and to give him something from the charity. And he needs help. He needs a handler, because he can't remember things. He'll leave, you tell him, hey, I'm going to put this check in your wallet, and you'll put it in his wallet. Okay, this is where it's at. Now, when you go home, you're going to give it to, so-and-so, right? Yep, I'm going to give it to so-and-so. And then he'll call you, 10 minutes later, hey, what happened to that check? And this is the reality of what happens. People don't see it, because when the fighter leaves, they're gone. And the fighter then has to live with the damage that they accepted being that guy that stepped in the cage. It doesn't leave them. They've got to now live the rest of their life, and that damage just continues to accumulate. And so these guys are out there, and understand, I'm never ever going to put down anybody that wants to continue fighting, but I would always try to talk them out of it, because it's not good for your health. And the older you get, usually there's reasons why fighters, start to lose when they're older. You slow down. Your brain doesn't work as fast. Your body doesn't work as fast. And the trauma from your competitive days, it doesn't stop when the competition stops. The trauma continues on. Yeah, I know. That's enough.
No, it's true. And like I said, I've come to accept the fact that I was in it to be the best, and once I realized I couldn't be the best anymore, there's no reason to continue to take damage. Cowboy has stated publicly he's in it, he wants to be in it until the wheels fall off. And I'm more.
They
more,
will.
Yeah, more power to you. But I also just. I see him now all the time with his son. He looks like he's super happy being a dad. And later on in life, when you want to go and do things with your son, you may not remember that you're supposed to go do those things. And, you may not remember how to do the things that you want to do with him as well. And so I get concerned. I'm not just talking about Cowboy. I'm talking about all the fighters.
Every fighter,
that you see it in them. And a lot of these fighters have more than one kid. They have 2 or 3 or 4, and I like to be more on the conservative side of making sure that they're all okay. And, we don't have anything set up for us. Like, I believe boxing has something set up for them, for retired fighters who need help or anything along those lines.
No. Boxers don't have. In fact, I will tell you, there's one state, California. California set up a boxers pension fund long ago where promoters had to pay a certain amount of tax that went to the pension fund. They also set up a neurological fund, but there was Chicanito was a friend of mine, Hernandez, who his brother is Rudy Hernandez, who is a cut man in the UFC.
Yes.
And Chicanito, he was dying of cancer and couldn't get the money that he had put in the thing, and we're all trying to tell the commission, hey, you've got to give this guy's not going to make it. Eventually they got him that money, and that it's not a lot, but it's enough to make a difference in his lifestyle and his ability to pay for himself at the time. But boxers don't get pensions really either, and MMA fighters. So you've got to do the things while you're fighting, instead of buying the Bentley. Buy the Prius. The Prius goes. You know what? It doesn't go as fast. It's not as pretty. I admit it, but it gets you from point A to point B the same. Yeah. It will get you there. Yeah. And that's what you have to learn is everyone wants the fancy thing, and I understand why, and it's great, but if you take most of that money and you put it away, you will have something later on. You will be able to put that thing into funds, and you'll be able to invest it, and you're not going to have to fight for the rest of your life, and you'll be able to live your life. Because as a fighter, you've only got a short window. And I say, look, it's 10 years. Now, for some guys, it's longer than that. For some people, it's shorter. And that 10-year plan, man, you want to get in and out, take as little damage as you can, get your money, invest it. Don't buy 7 different cars and 2 homes. Yeah. And I hear this from T. Wood, and I'm feeling horrible for him. Yeah. And it's just, I wish, he wasn't in that situation. Let's talk about Bellator 238 in LA. That was a good show. It really was. Yeah,
it was great. We did a lot of stuff for the emerging vets and players MVP. That was nice. We had them.
Man, you got to really you got to give it up for Jay Glazer and everything that he has done to make that happen. Him and Nate Boyer, but Jay has been the guy behind it. He's really touched a lot of people's lives, man. It's one of those, someone and you go, man, I know you. I can't believe you did that now. But seriously, I'm so proud of him. So proud of what he's accomplished and stuff, because he's a boisterous, loud, fucking in your face guy, and that's what I love about him, anyways. But he gets all misty eyed anytime he starts talking about one of his MVP guys, and it's really nice to see. It's a great program.
Yeah, I was there helping teach the boxing portion of it all on Wednesday night before, and it was something different. I got to tell you, it was so for those of you guys don't know what Jay does at Unbreakable Gym there on Sunset Boulevard in Hollywood is they talk about guys, what they do is they break them up. So 20 minutes of a workout on the bag, 20 and exercises, and then 20 minutes of exercise on the other side. And then they switch another 20 minutes. So you're getting like a total of like an hour workout, 40 minutes, but it's like an hour of conversation back and forth here and there. And then at the end, they do like, their sharing time, which they basically all could gather up and they share their stories. You've got, not even so much retired athletes, just athletes that were forced out of their position, whether it's the NFL, whether it's NBA, whether it's the Olympics. There was a girl there. She was a 2-time gold medalist and also a silver medalist, Olympian. And then there was a couple NFL players that were there that used to play in the league and no longer are there, but they're trying to get back in. And they've got tons of military vets that have been discharged due to PTSD or, you know, severe injuries and bodily injuries and things like that. So, but they were all telling stories, and to hear the stories that they have to live with, and just the conversation all of them were trying to help each other get through was just so fascinating to me and sad. It really is sad because and I'm going to give you guys one of the stories. A guy was in Afghanistan, and in Afghanistan there was a guy on a motorcycle with bombs strapped all to him. He was riding right at him, at one of our troops, and he was in a Humvee, and he was hanging out the window. The guy was riding the motorcycle right at him, and he shot the guy. When he shot the guy, he didn't realize that the guy had a little girl around his waist from behind, strapped to him. So the little girl would have died regardless, but the bullet that shot the guy had went through the little girl as well. And the guy has just been living with that ever since then. And every day, he's like, every day I just rethink and reenact that moment of what I could have done differently and how I could have done things differently. And it's just, I can't imagine living with like that kind of pain in my life every single day. And all the other troops, you know, and all the other vets were just sitting there telling him, like, you can't live with that. Like, that guy was willing to kill, which they think was his daughter. He was willing to kill his own daughter, you know, to kill you. And it's sad. It's really upsetting, you know. And there was other stories. I'm not going to share all of them. Just that one. That was the one that kind of stuck with me the most, you know, because I have nieces and I have nephews, and and just it just kind of came up to my head now with Kobe losing his daughter and him, and it just kind of reminded me, like, damn, it's crazy. It's crazy to think these guys they go out there and they truly lay their life on the line, you know, for us. And we're here at home living our lifestyle, doing what we're doing right now, you know, and this guy comes back and he's depressed and upset, and just he goes through, he's like, it's ebb and flow, just kind of up and down with him on how he feels day to day. And MVP gives him that outlet where he comes in, he gets a workout in, breaks a sweat, everyone's super friendly. And when I pulled up, they have people out there greeting them. Hey guys, what's up? Everyone get in, go, take your gloves off, take your shoes off, put your gloves on, let's go. And they feel like as if they're back like in a locker room somewhere, you know, or, you know, out there with their troops.
That's the best part of it. Because one of the things that, and I don't care if it's fighting, because fighting, you have your team. Yeah. And your team is so important. Think about the guys that you trained with. Yeah. And those are your guys, and you share things with those guys. If you're in the football team, you know, it was one of the things that people used to talk about different things and stuff, man. There was never any race or anything in a gym or on a football team or any like that. Man, you were brothers. You're all, you know, we're working towards being the best that we can be and winning. And that's something that is one of the greatest times of your life, that camaraderie. And it's no different being in the military with your platoon, or, you know, the people that you go through, you know, basic training with, and then you move on to where, you know, depending upon what service you are, that platoon, and that's whatever, you know, MOS you have. You share things with those people that you know, only they understand, and only they can kind of get you at the time. And then when you leave it, when you leave, I don't care if it's fighting, or you leave football, or you leave basketball, or you leave the military, it is gone immediately. Gone. Now you have a phone and you can call people, but it's just not the same. And that's the biggest element that is so hard to replace, is you don't have that camaraderie that made it special. And, you know, living life, those are the moments that's what makes life special. And you've got to find something to replace it. And that's the one thing that I love about, you know, what Jay has done. And he talked to us long ago. You remember when he was starting it and saying, you know, this is what I'm going to do. And I was like, man, that's a great idea, because I know that, you know, hey, when I left certain things, it was hard as far as, man, that camaraderie was gone. I couldn't bullshit with the same guys and couldn't do the same things. And I think that's kind of like what we have, you know, with Bellator and our production guys and stuff. We're always bullshitting. It's a camaraderie. Yeah. And it makes it fun. It makes it special. And it's beautiful that MVP And that program is replacing that missing element for these guys. And they're getting they're getting great things out of it. So it's fantastic.
Yeah, I think he's done a great job. He's had the support of a lot of top NFL coaches, athletes, things like that as well to help him, build this program. And he's doing a wonderful job. And, Nate Boyer and them, they reached out with Chris Pratt there as well. They do a great job, like building these guys up. When I was there, they all left with smiles on their faces. They all got new MVP Bellator shirts. They were all super happy with the hats. And it was awesome. It was a great moment, and Bellator that night ended up donating money as well to the cause, which is a great cause. And I love seeing it. And I thought it was a great job by him. And continue. I told him, I said, anytime I'm in town, I'll come by and I'd love to be part of it again, help teach the boxing portion again, or the workout fitness portion again, whatever it is. So I thought it was a great job by Jay. I want to just tip my hat off to him for doing such a great thing.
And nice job of Bellator and Scott Coker for donating a lot of money to him and for giving all of that time and that airtime for that program. That's worth a lot of money. And they did all of that. That's all for free to try to build that program up. So way to go, Scott.
Yeah, I think we also gave out like 500 or 600 tickets so they could make it. So any troops that were there, or any troops that retired vets that whatever they couldn't afford tickets or something like that, we made sure that they were able to get there. So that was awesome. That was great. Then moving on to the fights. Let's talk. I guess let's go right to the main event.
Oh, come on, you got to.
Okay, Julia Budd, Chris Cyborg. Tell me. Give it to me.
Man, Chris looks so good, and she's a different fighter, Josh. She is fighting different. She's doing some of the same elements, but we talked about it before, and I said, she has that berserker style that comes from shoot the box, and that's what got her in trouble in her loss against Amanda. Is she wanted to go out there and you can't just think you're going to get rid of everybody fast. And I said, if she does that berserker style, she can put herself into trouble. And she had her moments. She was coming in, doing damage, exiting out. She's fighting smart right now. And I thought that Julia Budd went out there, and I'm not sure if it was that moment, because Julia Budd was winning the first round. She had Chris on the ground, and she was in a position, and she throws that knee, and it was an illegal knee. Referee Mike Beltran saw it. He calls it. He did not take a point. How he penalized her was he took her out of the position, which I thought was the right call, because you're talking about a championship fight. Let me take you out. Chris wasn't hurt by it. You could tell that she wasn't damaged in any way by it. She did get hit by it, but she wasn't damaged. And so he takes the position away. But that moment changed that round. It changed, I don't know if it changed the mentality of Julia, but that round got away from her then. Chris ended up winning that round. Chris came out in the second round. Julia's fighting hard, but Chris is getting the better shots in. In the third round, I had it at 10-8. I know two of the judges had it as a 10-8 also on the scorecards. And Chris the train started rolling. And everything she was doing. I mean, take a look at the ending sequence of that fight. Look at the hand speed.
Yeah.
And look at the up and down that Chris is hitting her with shots to the head, shots to the body, knees inside. It was beautiful. And, and she got dropped by the body shot. And anybody that has ever been hit by a body shot, when you get hit with a good one, you will know. Because you'll say, I'm okay. And your body's telling you, no, you're not. And you say, stand up. And your legs are going, no, you're not going to stand up. And you just start going. You just can't help it. And I thought Julia represented herself very well. I thought she fought like a champ. She went out there and gave everything she had. Did she make mistakes? Yes, she made some mistakes. And those mistakes led to the downhill side of that fight for her. But, I give her credit. I think she's been a fantastic champion for Bellator. She's represented that well. And you know what? Congratulations to Chris. That was a beautiful performance. And I look forward to seeing, what she's going to do next and who she's going to fight next. And if she keeps fighting the way she is right now, man, she can be hard to beat.
Yeah, I think when she lost to Amanda, my thought and process was for, 12, 13 years, she was able just to walk through people when they punched her. And she continued to believe in herself up until that moment happened. You know, and I said this right after that fight, like that night after that fight ended. If they were to fight again, Cyborg would walk through her. Because she knows now, after seeing Amanda fight also, and if you go back and you look at Amanda's other fights, even now, when she fought Jermaine Durandamy, had she not had takedowns, or had Jermaine had a little bit more takedown defense, she would have lost. Amanda would have lost. So yeah, the fight's different. And I look at Cyborg; she's got really good takedown defense. Amanda wouldn't have been able to do that to her, and we see that Amanda slows down as the fight goes on. And I don't understand how people can say after one loss that you are not the GOAT of women's MMA. She's hands down the best women's MMA fighter I've ever seen. Not just because...
Yeah, but she got beat by Amanda.
Yeah, she got beat by Amanda. Yeah, that doesn't make
Come on, she got beat by Amanda. That means that Amanda's got to be the best.
It doesn't make any sense. So... It doesn't make any sense. And I'm a Max Holloway fan. I'm a huge Max Holloway fan.
But if you're gonna tell me Max Holloway's the best featherweight of all time, you're full of shit.
You're out of your fucking mind. And I like him.
Jose Aldo.
Yeah.
He did it for a lot longer, and that's why.
And that was my point. My point is, like, if someone goes undefeated for so long, or not undefeated, but they just haven't lost in that amount of time, right? And they've been the champion, defending the title for that long. I mean, she's been the champion in every organization she's ever stepped foot in. And she was really good. Now, Amanda got her that night. But the bottom line is, like I said, if they fought again, I think she just dismantles Amanda. Now, look, the puncher shot is always there, of course.
Sure.
And Amanda's got the one crunch. It's hard to find a female that has the one crunch, like knockout. I was trying to chain that all together. It didn't come out right. It sounded ridiculous. Yeah.
It's all one punch crunching, man.
Yeah. So it's like the cereal I eat in the morning. Captain Crunchin' Punchin' or whatever it is. Anyways, look, I go back to this because sure, I would have loved to have seen that fight happen again. It's never going to happen. Yeah. It's never going to happen now. And we know that. The bottom line is you cannot take it away from her. Like I said when we were getting ready to introduce, when we came live on air, that I was almost late to and almost missed. I
didn't say a thing.
I'll tell you guys all that story in a little bit. But I said it on air when the main card started. Other women have come and gone in this organization that have been huge names, and it will continue to be huge names. Gina Carano, huge name in the movie industry now. Okay. Ronda Rousey now is in WWE, huge name in MMA as well as WWE, as also she's done movies as well. Outside of those two, now you have Amanda Nunes because I'd give Holly Holm that credit. Misha Tate, I don't know what I was thinking of her as well. Marloes Conan, like those girls have been pillars of the sport. Hands down they have, but none of them have ever done what Chris Cyborg has done. There's no way you're going to try to tell me that she is not the GOAT. There's no way. And I don't think there's ever, maybe there will be. I don't think there's ever going to be another female like her. If there is, it'll be 30, 40 years down the line. When the sport is completely different for women, when the sport has changed and is completely different for women, I think that's when we may see when the child who's not even born yet starts training MMA at 3 and 4 and 5 years old.
And then they'll
child
be comparing her to Chris Cyborg.
Yep.
Yeah, it's as simple as this. Larry Holmes was a great champion as a heavyweight boxer, and Larry Holmes beat the shit out of Muhammad Ali.
Yeah.
He did. I mean, it was brutal. And you're going to tell me that Larry Holmes was a greater heavyweight than Muhammad Ali?
No.
Come on. You know, it's not there. Someone can lose to someone, and that's fine. They lost. Amanda's got a long ways to go, and I've said this, and it's not that I believe in Amanda. And I will tell you that when I first saw Amanda fight, when I did when I first officiated her, I told her, I said, "Hey, you could be great at this. Work hard, continue on. You can ask her." And I thought she had talent, and the one thing I did see is that she got tired in fights, and that kind of led to some of her losses. But she has just performed beautifully in her last sequence of fights. The fight with Jermaine, she had some problems, but she overcame those and dominated the fight. but she still has a ways to go because Chris was undefeated for 20 fights. All right, 20 fights in a row. And I kind of look at it, and Chris is the one that she kind of put it out there, and I think it's true. She's very religious. She believes in God, and God's got a plan for her. And she would never have been able to leave the UFC if she had won that fight.
Yeah.
And she said, it was in this building, and I lost that belt, and I was happy. I was happy. And now look, and I come back and I win this belt here, and I'm happy.
Yeah.
And, what's meant to be is meant to be. And if they fought again, it would be a great fight. I do think that it would be a different fight, and I think Chris would fight it differently. I think Amanda would try to fight it close to the same, which would be smart. Force her into that, that gunslinging match. But Chris Cyborg, in my mind, there's no way that you can sit there and say that she hasn't been the most complete and dominant female fighter that there's ever been. Now, Ronda had her little, she had her run, and she was absolutely the most popular and most famous female fighter, and much more famous than even Amanda is now. Mm-hmm. But does that make Ronda the greatest female fighter of all time? No, it doesn't. I think she was very important for MMA, super important for women's MMA. But, to say that she was the person, the fighter that, they've said she's the fighter that, brought up women's MMA. No, she's not.
No, she's not.
No, she's not, man. You want me to go back to the old days? There's a girl named Jennifer Howe.
I do remember her.
Go watch Jennifer Howe, and then Roxanne Modafferi is the one that ended up beating Jennifer Howe.
Yeah.
And it comes up with
back.
Gina Carano. Gina Carano was the one. She was the girl that, man, people wanted to watch.
Yeah.
And she had that it factor. That's why she's an actress now. That's who she was.
Yeah.
She didn't even try. Most of the time she was embarrassed about being there, and it was just the looks that you would give, all guys would melt. And she helped create an image for women's MMA that got the very first main event against Chris Cyborg.
Yeah.
That was the first main event in a major promotion. Strikeforce put that on, and Gina Carano is the one that helped bring that women's MMA to the next level. And then Chris, she carried that mantle of being that's the best one there is, and she still can carry that mantle.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, think about it. She was in the very first main event for women's MMA, and to think that people are saying that she's done her part in helping build women's MMA, and I continue to consider her the GOAT. And until 4 different titles, 4 different promotions, she's done everything she could possibly do in the sport itself. There's really no reason for her to even keep fighting, but she does it. She does it because she loves it.
Name me the person that's got 3 titles in major promotions. Just go ahead and sit there because you're not. None.
The only guy
Zero.
the only guy that's close will be Benson Henderson. He'll be the only one.
The only guy that's close is Gegard.
Oh, that's
Gegard
true.
Gegard can sit there and say he's got Strikeforce.
Yeah.
He had Dream.
Yeah.
And he won the Bellator.
Yeah.
He's got 3. Other than that, I can't think of anyone. They're all got. I got a lot of 2s.
Yeah.
But Gegard's the only guy that I can say has the 3.
Yeah. Benson's got 2. He potential of getting 3 is could happen. Jesus.
Benson had WEC and UFC.
Yep.
Anthony Pettis.
Eddie Alvarez
had Bellator.
Bodog?
UFC. What's that?
Didn't he have Bodog?
No.
Oh, he lost that to
He lost that.
Matt Lee.
He had Nick Thompson.
Oh,
First
Nick
one
Thompson. Got it. I could have swore he was the Bodog champion. Oh, yeah, I can't think of it.
I could be wrong. Maybe he came back and won it, but
Does John Fitch have?
no, he's only who?
nope.
No, that's it.
World Series of Fighting.
Oh, you didn't have one?
No,
UFC?
no.
He lost to GSP
Yeah.
in his only attempt.
Yep. They didn't like him. They fought tooth and nail
they
just to
buried him.
even give him that one. Yeah, they didn't want him to fight. They didn't want him to fight GSP. So to me, and I felt like I called it. The fight of the night was I can't say his last name.
Sergio Pettis against Alfred Kashakian.
Kashakian. I just called him Alfred all night because I was like, man, I do not want to fuck this guy's name up. I feel badly. I just didn't want to. And I knew how to say it, but just, when you're just hesitant to say it, I was like, don't say it. Don't say it. So I just called him Alfred all night. Safe bet. Okay. Look, that ended up being, to me, I felt like that ended up being the fight of the night. What other fight was there?
What a performance by Sergio, man.
Yeah. But
he looked good because Kashakian was throwing bombs and he was avoiding every one. He got hit one time fairly decently, but, man, he looked good. And when he hit him with that freaking right hand, dropped him down, I couldn't believe it. I mean, you talk about Tyson Fury coming up from being hit by Deontay Wilder.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe that Kashakian was able to actually sit back up and he was still in that fight at that point, trying.
Yeah, Sergio jumped on in the mount, basically, right in the mount, and he was trying to push him off. I thought Sergio was going to go for the arm because he was pushing on the arm and the chest. Yeah. I was like, don't go for the arm. Don't go for the arm. Just keep top position. In my mind, I'm thinking fighter IQ. And he didn't. He just kept trying to punch him. But then when Alfred was able to get to a position where he could jump to the guillotine, and I've trained with Pettis. I've trained with Anthony Pettis, and they've got good little guillotines, got good little arm and guillotines. They're really good from inside their guard, armors and triangles. Like you see it with the Manuel Sanchez, and you see it with him, and even Stotts. He's got a good little arm and guillotine as well. Tough. And so when I knew he sunk that in, and Alfred was rocked, I was like, oh, this is over. This is over.
Especially when he had his arm trapped.
Yeah.
He had his arm trapped in his guard. It's like, it's done.
But I thought it was a very dominant performance by Sergio. He did a great job using the footwork, not letting Alfred get too far ahead of himself inside the pocket. As soon as he got inside the pocket and was getting ready to throw, Sergio would throw something small, not even hard, just something small. Boom, boom, and get out.
Circled out.
He would use his speed. Even if he didn't throw something, he would feint really hard to make Alfred move, and then he would get out of the line of fire. That was a good performance by him, and I was very impressed with that. Look, the fight that I was kind of
shocked over. Go ahead.
Yeah, was Emily King.
Oh, yeah, that one. Okay. I thought it was another one.
No, I was shocked by the Emily King fight. I was getting into the other two, but I was shocked, but it was more like a disappointment shock, not a good shock. Those two guys. It was the Emily King. I was very impressed, very calm, very composed. She fought a really good fight.
She said, you know what? She did exactly what she said she was going to do. She said, look, I know she's good with her hands. I'm gonna just walk through that because I've got to get through it, and I'm going to get her to the ground. I'm going to hunt for submissions, and I will submit her. And she did exactly that. And I'll give, Ava just doesn't have the experience on the ground right now to, she'll do one thing right and then two things wrong. Yeah. And it's just a matter of time. She's got great hands. Yeah. But when you're off of your feet, doesn't matter how good your hands are because you just can't use those tools that you've practiced all those years to use, and you're fighting to keep this person from wrapping you up. Yeah. But Emily King, man, Knoxville in the house, man. She came and rocked it. OSP's camp.
I thought she stayed calm, composed. She did everything she's supposed to do. Ava Knight, to me, I felt like she lacked the MMA fighter IQ. She was out of the triangle several times, and then she threw herself right back in the triangle or back into guard. And I'm like, wow, what are you doing? You need to, at that stage, especially when you're not sweaty, you need to get out and away. Just get away from whoever is threatening to take you down, especially if you're mainly just all boxing. And I expected that to happen. I expected, your head's up, you're defending the triangle good, and then you basically fall back into it, or you're out and away and you let her grab your leg, and you just, instead of trying to continue to kick out, you jump back into the guard or half guard. I was like, oh no. So she lacks the experience, which I think was a good experience for her, even though she lost, but I think she'll learn a lot from it.
It's okay. Yeah. That's 4 fights in a row for Emily King. Yeah. She started off her career 0-3, and now she's 4-3. So you got to give it to her. Yeah. She's rounded that corner, man, and is on her way. So very nice performance.
I'm going to complain a little bit. Try not to be disrespectful, but I'm going to complain a little bit about Henry Cross and Juan Archuleta. I expected more. I do understand both of them are coming off losses, so I understand the timidness of timidness of fighting. I understand them.
Timidity.
Is it timidity?
It'd be timidity.
All right.
I understand the timidity as far as not being very careful and engaging.
Yeah, I understand them not wanting to engage and get clipped, knocked out. Both of them have knockout power. We've seen it from both of them. Both of them are just, like I said, junkyard dogs. Both of them are trying to get back on the winning track. I wanted to see them mix it up a little bit more, which on their side, it was smart for them not to because the fight could end with one punch. I wanted to see Juan wrestle a little bit more, get Corrales thinking about the takedown. After he didn't get the takedown, the very first takedown, he pretty much abandoned it and just went to striking, touch, strike, move out of the way. And it worked for him. But I got to tell you, it was a close fight. It was a close fight. It came down to how you scored the first round. It was a close fight. Depending on how you scored the first round. Juan obviously won the second round. And in the third round, I had Henry win in the third round.
Corrales.
So it came down to how you scored the first round. The first round was dead even. It was a heat.
It was close. And it's one of the things that has always made Juan who he is, and it's not even that he always gets to that takedown, but it's his ability to make you think. You know, he'll come in and he'll do like a knee tap, you know, boom. But then as he's going for the knee tap, the hand comes over the top, and he uses the wrestling to set up his striking, and he wasn't using wrestling to set up his striking. He was trying to use all that in and out foot movement that he uses. He needs to go a little bit back to what he was doing in the past of utilizing that wrestling. Even if you're not going to try to get it all the way to the ground, engage with that and then exit, hitting your shots, hitting the elbows, hitting the knees, flying knees. You know, he used to do flying knees all the time. Zero.
Yeah.
Because he's worried. Yeah. He's worried about making the mistake.
The fight that actually I was the most impressed with.
Darian Caldwell, come on.
You know, actually, yeah.
Come on.
I was impressed with him, but
you had to be. He did exactly what he's supposed to do.
I will continue to go back to this, though.
Don't go back to it.
I cannot. I can't. It's all right. I'm gonna say what Stephen A. said. I didn't get enough from it. I didn't get enough to show that he is someone that can go the distance in a 5-round and perform, not just win the first 3 rounds by taking you down. I didn't see enough. I thought it was a great fight. I thought he did a good job of winning the fight. I thought he did everything he needed to do to someone who was undefeated, had never lost ever in combat sports. Never had lost in kickboxing, never had lost in boxing, never lost in MMA, never had lost in combat sports. And all the talk for me on my side was about Adam Borks because all the stuff that was coming out of his camp and how good he was. And not guys like trying to sugarcoat it. Literally guys saying like, dude, he's fucking me up, or I don't spar with him because I'm a pussy and like he hits too hard and he goes too hard, and or I just don't want to get hurt before my fight. Like, you know, he is good. And it just sucks we didn't get to see more of him because I was really excited to see more of him. But Darian Caldwell, I got to tip my hat, brother. You did a great job. You did everything you needed to do. You fought a smart fight. You were seeking the submission the whole time. You set it up with strikes, which is nice. I like that. You got busier on the top. That's what set up the submission. We talked about it at the fighter meetings. The thing that scared me is when you said, I asked you, are you ready to go 5 rounds? I saw him in the lobby like 2 days before. You ready to go 5 rounds? Kind of.
Not going to need to.
He's like, no, I don't need to. It's only going to go 1. And I was like, oh, shit. That's not something as a coach or as a corner, and you never want to hear that. And when I hear that in interviews, it usually means you're not ready to go 5. You really think you're going to get him out of there in 1 or 2. And if you don't, then what happens? Well, you're going to lose. Well, he's a man of his word. He did exactly what he said he was going to do. I'm going to get him out of there in 1. All right. Well, I mean.
And like the way he controlled the far side arm and had it, and Adam is working things, and he's just waiting, and he's waiting for that chin to lift. And as soon as that chin lifted, there went the left arm right behind it, let go of the hand, went for the rear naked, kind of got the hand a little high. You saw Borch get a hold of it, then brought it palm to palm, had a tight squeeze because it was under the chin. And look, that is what you are supposed to do in the tournament format. Go in there, get rid of them fast, don't take any damage. Now you can move on. And perfect performance by Darian Caldwell. Perfect. And he's got the opportunity. If you think about it, he's got the opportunity. He just took a 14-0 and put that O with a 1 on the end of it with Borch, and now he's facing AJ McKee, another undefeated fighter, I believe 15-0. Wow. So he's got another chance to dismantle that O on the other side.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm definitely excited for that, to see how those two guys, because those two are perfect clash of each other. The speed, athleticism, and we saw him in AJ McKee's last fight. He was starting to slow down on that third round. So if the two of them have the same issue where they both, they have to go 5 rounds, because all these fights from now on out are 5 rounds. If he has to go 5, how are either one of those guys going to handle it in the 4th and 5th round? And it's scary to think, because, to me, I would lean probably more towards Darrion Caldwell, because he's got the more experience of fighting 5-round fights, being the champion at 135, being the former champion at 135. Not only that, he's also got the better wrestling. So when you talk about who gets tired faster and this and that, but who can wrestle and get the fight to the ground, so you got to carry their weight the whole fight? Darrion. I just didn't see that happening. I thought of all the talk and conversation about Adam Borks that it was going to be a lot different of a fight. And I was wrong. Man. That tasted like vinegar coming out of my mouth. Look, but the other guy that impressed me on the prelims was Aaron Pico.
Goddamn, he looked good.
He looked good. He looked exactly how we would have liked him to look. The transitions, the smooth transitions from boxing to takedown, as well as not overreacting when someone stepped in and lowering his level to getting the takedown. Great job by Aaron Pico in his performance. Now, he needs to grow on this with Jackson Wink, which I think he will. I talked a lot with Greg Jackson throughout the week, and he said, look, he's doing a fabulous job. He learns so fast, which is obvious. It's obvious that he does. Given all of his experience from wrestling, you can tell he learns really well. It really just comes down to whether he can implement it in an actual real fight. And I think this fight showed that he could. On top of that, you could tell there was times he got hit and he wanted to get after it and get down, and you just can't.
He saw it.
You just cannot do that with the little gloves. And I'm glad he didn't do it, and it all worked out for him.
I thought he looked really good, and exactly what you're talking about. There were moments where he got touched by Dan, and you saw he wanted to, I'm going to set my feet and throw, and it's like, nope. And he did a nice little step out to the side, reset, and came back at it. And when he went for the takedown, got to half guard real quick, clamped down, and took his time, but postured, landed big shots, hurt Daniel Carey with an elbow on the ground. You could see Carey having a lot of problems from that one shot, really hurt him.
Yeah.
And then that knockout, he didn't even hit him with the fist. He clubbed him and hit him, more with the side of his hand and his wrist area, but just put him unconscious. Yeah. The kid's got power. I've called him the iron-fisted matador since he does his little his little Olay thing.
Yeah.
But man, he's got power, and he just needs to be smart in when he applies that power and how he applies it without sticking his chin out there to be touched by somebody. Everything that I saw in that fight showed me that he has progressed as an MMA fighter, training at Jackson Wink with those guys. Just keep doing what you're doing, and the wins will continue to mount up, and then eventually that world championship will be there for you.
I want to see him work on checking kicks and keeping his hands in positions to make sure that none of the kicks get through. He seemed a little all over the place a little bit this fight. Carry through a bunch of kicks, and he was able to block and make sure none of them snuck through, but he looked like real rigid. When someone kicked, he flinched first before he blocked. So that just comes with more time, more practice. Yeah. That's all it is. But I just want to see him get that down. I really like the kid, and I've had him on the podcast from before, and he's a good kid. He's an extremely good kid. He's
a great kid. Super polite, super nice, respectful to everybody.
Yeah,
just a good young man.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what's next for him, and hey, we'll build him up from there.
What about Raymond Daniels? Look pretty good.
Yeah, I thought
39 years of age.
Jeez, man, no idea how he's still doing it. That's insane. That guy, I swear, 39 years old, he still looks good, lean, ripped, can still bounce around like he's 22. Just insane. It was crazy. You see something. If I tried to do any of that shit he did, I would have been gassed out in the first 2 minutes. No way, man. No way.
Tell me about it.
In shape or not. God.
2 minutes. I'd have gone 35 seconds doing what he did, and I've been over in the corner, putting my hand on the cage, going, "I got to need some air."
Just it would have been like Greg Hardy in the corner, give me the oxygen.
Can I have my puffer?
Where's my inhaler? Where's my inhaler?
I need my puffer. I need
That's
my
so
puffer.
Funny. I thought he looked good. Look, exactly like I said with Aaron Pico. I want to see things. I want to see things that show me you're progressing as an MMA fighter, not just with who you are and what got you signed at the show. Like with Aaron, it was because of his wrestling. We knew he had some boxing. We knew his credentials in wrestling. He was young, talented. We could work with that. And with Raymond Daniels, he's got such extensive background in kickboxing, phenomenal. I mean, world champion for Bellator kickboxing. But you want to see them progress as MMA guys. And when I saw him jump into King's guard and start when King started going for the leg lock, I was like, oh shit, it's over. And he grabbed the body.
Saw him cup the head.
Yep, saw him cup the head, pull the body close, and then the common mistake for guys that are going for leg locks is to hold the position and then your face is not being
start taking shots.
We saw it with Ian Freeman years ago. I want to say with
Frank Mir.
And that was Frank Mir held onto the leg lock too long, and Ian Freeman was able to put him away in that position. And that's exactly what we saw with King as well. So I thought it was a good progression, small progressions for him. But at 39 years old, we have him there for a reason, just to put on a show. We know at 39 years old, he's not trying. I don't think he's trying to be world champion. Sure, maybe one day he'd like to have a title shot. But I got to tell you, man, the only fight to really ever make is him and MVP. I'm telling you.
There you go.
I'm hoping that fight happens real soon.
It's like if you can't put Stephen Thompson and MVP together,
yep.
Well, that's all right. We'll take the guy that beat Stephen Thompson, Ray Daniels.
Yep.
And I know Steven puts out these 57-0 in kickboxing, but he did lose to Ray Daniels in Chuck Norris's WCL.
Wow.
I was watching it. I was there, so he did lose to him.
That's
so
funny.
I don't know what the 57-0 is, but that's a kickboxing competition. But Ray Daniels against MVP would be fun.
Yes. And it
would be fun.
They're both the same weight. Let's get it, Bellator.
Yeah,
Let's get it.
Let's do it.
All right, well, hey, let's call this a wrap. I think it's been 2.5 hours.
It's been a while.
Just over 2.
You got that whole JRE thing going, man. Joe Rogan got you used to doing those 3-hour podcasts, man.
Oh no, we just had a lot. We had a lot to cover. There was so much to cover, and obviously the loss of Kobe and his daughter. We talked about that. We don't normally have to talk about situations like that. So that it was good. It was, I think, the whole weekend was a lot. A lot of things happened this weekend, and it was a good weekend to be there. And we didn't touch base on any of the UFC stuff because we were working the same night, so I didn't get a chance to watch it. So
I still haven't watched it. I will.
I'm gonna go back and watch it.
Taped.
Maybe we can talk about it maybe later this week or something like that.
Okay.
All right. All right, my man. Well, hey, thank you guys for tuning in. Please hit the subscribe button, share our videos, hit the thumbs up as well in YouTube. That will share our videos to everyone else. And those of you guys that just started following us from JRE, our shows are not normally 2.5 hours long or 2. So we usually do about an hour-long show, and we, and we'll give you some tidbits on fights coming up and fights going back, as well as, our own personal experiences with the show behind the scenes. And what I love about working with Big John McCarthy, let me explain to you one thing. The guy has the knowledge from all of the fights that he's ever worked, but not just as far as from a fighter's perspective, but also the perspective of from being a referee and dealing with commissions and understanding from picograms all the way to eye pokes and early stoppages, late stoppages that refs handled. Those are things that myself, I cannot speak from experience because I've never had picograms in my body, but. John here, he can talk.
He has had picograms in his body. Okay,
John can talk about all those things because he has such a great relationship with the commissions all across the United States. So I just wanted to give you guys a touch base. Thank you for joining us. If you guys are following us from the JRE show, and we'll continue to get better. If you also will be opening up a fan question, we should do that maybe tomorrow. Maybe fan question tomorrow or the next day. Maybe we'll do fan questions and we'll answer all those and we'll get those busted out for you guys and get your guys' response of what you guys would like to hear more about. And we'll go from there. What do you think, John?
Sounds good. We also need a best of.
Yes, we do.
2019's over. We got to do a best of.
We got to do a best of for 2019. And we what we also need is we need to know what your top 5 worst stoppages are.
Damn, why do you want to do that to me?
I want to do you dirty.
Okay.
Dude, maybe. Yeah. No, that's the one I want to hear about.
Right.
I think it's good. I like worst. Oh, maybe we shouldn't do that to you. Well, you know what? Maybe we'll ask the fans what they want to hear. Look, you guys, thank you for joining us. Follow us on Instagram on, what's it called? Instagram is Wayne and Show. And then also follow me at The Real Punk on Instagram and on Twitter. And then John McCarthy MMA, correct?
Yep. Instagram and Twitter.
Okay. And then hit the subscribe button on all of it. We're on iTunes, SoundCloud, Google Play, iHeartRadio, all those things as well. So please hit the thumbs up on the YouTube. That will share our videos to everyone. I appreciate you guys. Thank you.
And thank you for listening.
We're out.